Good morning, Deed Grabbers. Great to see you guys here today. Man, we're having a great day today in Colorado. Hope you're doing the same wherever you are. Got a guest here today, Cindy Crane. Cindy is a super investor from Mississippi, and she's going to tell us a story about how to turn lemons into lemonade. Guys, like it, give us a heart if you like what we're doing here. If you have questions, jump in, please, anytime and ask them. That's what we're here for today, is to help you with your real estate investing and help you to get more deals and do a better job with those. So, Cindy, tell us about yourself, how you got started, and just a little about you and how great you are.
Well, I appreciate that, William. You're always so kind. When I hear William talk, I think Mississippi, where like kindred spirits, I feel like I'm home when I hear him. And I know he's drinking sweet tea with some lemon.
I am. So. I've got some sweet tea with lemon right here.
That's a prerequisite for a Southerner, except if you're diabetic, I guess. But I appreciate the invitation, and I'm excited to, to talk to the people on Facebook and people that might watch later in the group, because I just can't say enough good things about William and Jody and what they're doing subject to in creative financing. They answer any kind of question. I mean, they're just one of the best groups on Facebook and, in the real estate space to be in, because they're such great, generous, giving, smart people. And they help anybody. They answer, you don't have a stupid question. There are no stupid questions in their group. So, but just a little bit about me. I'm like a 7th generation Mississippian. And I live in my great grandparents' home, 1911 house in Carthage, Mississippi. I started real estate investing about 2005 because my neighbor's house went up for sale, and I was concerned about who was going to buy it. So I think that's how a lot of people start, maybe. But I was always interested in real estate. But I went to the University of Southern Mississippi, Brett Favre's homeschool, Sammy Winder, Reggie Collier, a bunch of those guys, and got a degree in recreation. And then I got a degree in hotel restaurant administration, which other than the things I learned and the relationships I made, haven't really done me a lot of good in my professional life. But anyway, I worked a lot of different things. I guess I really never found my call until I started about 2005, like I said, and bought that house. I had no clue what I was doing, had nobody to ask, I just winged it, got a bank loan, just winged it. And, but I did secure next to me. So I started watching when I'm dating myself, when the internet got more available and you could do research and things like that. Well, there was a group in Jackson. I live in Carthage, which is about an hour from Jackson, the state capital. And there was a Jackson real estate investment group. And I kind of started watching their emails and I think that was before Facebook, but anyway, so I decided to go down and see what I could figure out and see what I could learn. And I'm kind of my friends would disagree. I say I'm an introvert, but I would rather sit in the back of the room and listen and watch and gather information. If I know people real well, then I will talk. But so I've done enough of these and I'm not too nervous about doing it. But I went down there and I met a guy named Walter Wofford, who became my mentor. And Walter's very versed in real estate. And he was a good helper to me to get me where I'm going. He offered to ride along with me for $99 or something like that. He'd say, okay, I'm leaving at 1 o'clock and the first 4 people that get in my car get to go with me today. That's probably the only time I've been early in my life was then. But anyway, I helped Walter do seller financing. I helped Walter do long-term rentals, rehab. But prior to that, when I got divorced, this is kind of a side story that helps play into it. When I got divorced, I wanted to learn how to work on houses. Mm-hmm. We had cows and horses, and my dad had heavy equipment. My mother worked for a lawyer. But I didn't know anything about working on houses. So when I got divorced, I had to have a job. I had 6 years of college, and I found a guy that would hire me driving nails as a carpenter's helper for $6 an hour. And I took it. And the first whole day I spent driving nails and so floor all day, and I didn't quit. And I think that's the key to everything that we do, is to not quit. But I went on to learn about everything. I mean, I was scared to be on the roof, and by the time we got through, I was walking the eaves, and I learned everything about a house, which was invaluable for what I do now. And I think that people probably should either get a job, help their buddy, volunteer for Habitat for Humanity. I think it's good to know, because you'll know when somebody's doing a good job and at a fair price, and you don't, well, let me say, you're less likely to get taken advantage of. You still do. Everybody does. You know, it happens. But anyway, so I went on and worked for Walter for a long time, and started buying my own properties and long-term rentals. And then I got into seller financing. I got into Airbnb. I've moved some houses. I've bought a houseboat and sold it. I've just been that shiny object syndrome. I've done a little bit of everything.
Mhm.
But that's kind of where I'm at today. I do know that being focused is very important.
Mhm.
And so that's one of the reasons I joined Williams Coaching Group, because I see the value in the future of knowing how to use the tools that they offer. And I think that's going to be really important to investors going forward. And I like to focus on just a couple of things, because I've been kind of scattered, you know, my investing career. I've made mistakes. I've lost money. You know, I've made people mad, made a lot of people happy. So, but that all comes with it.
Mhm.
So
Oh,
sorry,
go
go ahead.
no, no, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. Sandy, go.
That's okay. One thing that I did pick up that I think is really important is when we talk about it in the accountability group sometimes, is reading good books, listening to good podcasts. And one of my favorites that has helped me a lot is The Obstacle is the Way. I don't know how many of y'all know about Stoicism. My friend Quincy, when I mentioned it to him, he said, "You didn't learn about Stoicism in high school?" I'm like, "No, I didn't." But I did. I just happened to be in a rabbit hole one day on an Airbnb, and I looked at a picture on the girl's Facebook page, and it was a definition of Stoicism. So I went searching, and I read Ryan Holiday's book, The Obstacle is the Way. And I have a pendant that's, it's hard for a Southerner to say it, amor fati, which means love of fate.
Mhm.
And that's kind of the Stoics guiding rule is, you know, whatever comes, you get stronger because you figure out how to go around it.
Right.
So I think that's really important in our world, is you got to develop a thick skin. I don't know about for you, William, but for me as a female, I still don't have a complete tough skin. I get my feelings hurt. But I've learned that if I just kind of sleep on it and I think
Mhm.
about it for a day or so and not to get too emotionally upset,
Mhm.
then I can find a solution and move forward, and everything's okay. What's the worst that's going to happen?
Right.
You know? So, so as far as one of the stories about making lemonade out of lemons. So a friend of mine, I'm a big believer in leveraging other people's time and talent. That's something that I would suggest, especially to new people, to make relationships and leverage other people's time and talent. So I always had a wholesaler guy that was old school guy in Jackson, and his name was Bert. And Bert was he was really cool. He liked to go sit down at people's dinner table, look at houses, you know, negotiate with them, get a contract signed. He was gold. I mean, he was good. And so if he got a deal that came from my lead, what we would do is he would present it to me. And if I wanted to keep it, then I would pay him a fee. And if I didn't want that particular property, then we would go market it. And whatever the profit we made over the contract, we just split it. So it was a win for everybody.
Right.
And so I had this other friend, David Sugg. He and his wife Rachel are investors in Jackson. Just a really cool couple, and really smart, hardworking young people. And he had this. He went and worked one of my leads, and it ended up being a subject to lead. The lady lived in the house, and her husband. Of course, I'll tell you more about what that house was in a minute. But she was behind on her mortgage, and they had already moved into the mother-in-law's house because the mother-in-law had moved to the nursing home, or, you know, somewhere like that. And so she was behind, and she wanted to sell, and she was pretty desperate. She was kind of a chain smoker at this point, you know. I don't smoke, I don't be around, you know, I don't do that. But anyway, so I met her one day and talked to her, and she was ready to sign the paperwork. Well, this is another reason, friends, that I think you need to be in Williams' group, because he gives you all the tools that you need, step by step, how to do it properly and correctly, so that you don't have to figure out how to undo stuff or figure out how to go around the obstacle going forward.
Mhm.
But anyway, the lady ended up accepting. We had a contract. I had intentions of doing all the paperwork and do it properly. This was about 4 years ago. but it just didn't work. Back to that focus thing. I had so many things going on. I was just hitting the highlights, I mean, I was just keeping the ball rolling. The snowball was coming behind me, and I just kept going every day because that's all I could do. But because I bought too many houses, I had too many different interests, and that was just not a good thing. But I learned my lesson. That's why I have this gray hair and wrinkles. I tell people I'm 25. This is what real estate does to you if you don't do it right. If you don't join Williams' group, you'll get a lot of gray hair, and that's the truth. That's the truth.
Right.
But anyway, so the lady, I'm sorry.
No, go.
So the lady, I met her one afternoon, and I had cash, and it was like at 4 o'clock when she got off work. And so I got in the car with her, which is scary in itself. And we were driving around because I was bound and determined I was getting that deed signed that day, right, and I was going to pay her and catch her up. So we went to the bank. Well, they were closing at that time. So I said, okay, I went ahead. Now this is stupid. I went ahead and paid her $2,400 and some odd dollars at the bank. But we couldn't, they were closing, and they would not let her sign and notarize that deed. So you can imagine the angst I was feeling at that time.
Oh, Cindy, you didn't really do that. You gave that lady money and you didn't even have a deed.
I did, but I had it in my hand, and I was in her car, and I was not getting out of her car until so we went from insurance agency to cigarette shop to somewhere until we found somebody who would notarize her signature on that deed. I got it done that day. And then she was calm, but she had to go. We had to make one more stop. She said, "Do you mind if we go by the Walmart? I need some cigarettes." So she went and bought like a carton of cigarettes.
This is Mississippi, guys. This is how it is. All right.
You do what you got to do, but I was bound and determined to get that thing. I wasn't getting out of her car until I got that deed signed.
She's losing her house. She can't make her house payment. The first money she gets, she wants to go get some cigarettes at the Walmart. Oh my gosh.
So I got that house, and I didn't really do anything with it. I didn't even go to it. David just said it was rough. Well, so I had other things going on. So I went back to that house one day, probably a month later, and I didn't have the insurance right, at that time. I do. I've had since in several years, but I think they used that house as a dog house. Literally, there was dog hair inside the oven. The baseboards had been gnawed on. It wasn't rats. I think it was dogs. But it was a nice 3-bedroom, 1-bath house, about 1,100 square feet on a corner lot. I mean, it was cute, had a new roof. The bathroom floor had a leak, and we had to replace it. So I repainted it. I jumped in there. Well, let me back up. So I was like, what am I going to do with this thing? Because I could rent it for $900, but my payment, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance was right at $700 a month. Her interest rate was like 6.5%, So I was like, well, I can rent it for $900, but I got to put some money in it. And I thought, well, I could sell or finance it, and somebody else can fix it up, and I'd be about the same. And then I was leaving the house one day, and I turned, and I was like, crap, the airport's right here. All, my mentor, Walter, they were doing Airbnb. So why don't I turn it into an Airbnb? I had no idea what that entailed. It sounds cool, but it's a whole lot of work. So that's what I set in to do. I said, well, people will come here from the airport. And all these years, I think I've had one person that stayed there because it was close to the airport. It's like 4 minutes from the airport. You never know. Go figure.
Yeah.
So, but I have, I spent probably $10,000 fixing the house like I needed to fix it. Now, I didn't replace those baseboards because I went ahead, because that's my personality. And a few weeks later, I went ahead and listed it on Airbnb. It wasn't even ready. And I started getting bookings. So I had a hard deadline. Somebody was coming to stay in that house.
Right.
And I needed it because I needed to make the payments, So anyway, it all worked out. I think I left about 10:30 that night, and the first guest came, and that was 3 years ago. And I've had hundreds and hundreds of guests, but most of them are travelers traveling across the country, or they're coming for medical something or what have you. So I end up renting it. I could have made about $200 a month. That's not counting anything, say, for maintenance. That's a gross. So So I really wasn't making much money renting it, but
Right.
I probably make anywhere from $1,000 to $1,200 net a
Mhm.
month now
Right.
because it's an Airbnb.
On a little house in Mississippi. Yeah.
In a little working class neighborhood,
Yeah. Well, that's great.
So
That's great. Hey guys, Tammy, good to see you on here. Petra, John, Kevin, Tim. Gosh, I'm looking at all the people who jumped on. Renee, good to see you. Phil, good to see you on here. And William, Joni, Rudy, Jim, and Corey, good to see all of you guys on here. You know, you said something earlier when you started talking that is absolutely key. And Kevin even commented up here later. Hey, Sarah, good to see you. Dana. And that's, you don't quit. That's the thing. I'll tell you, over the years to working with new investors and all, and JV partners and other people, there's some work involved in real estate investing, especially on the front end. And if you'll put that work in on the front end, setting up lead generation things, follow-up systems, putting the systems in place. Yeah, a lot of people later go, oh, man, you got it so easy. It's hard. Now, listen, guys, you don't know what hard was. When I got started investing, the internet wasn't super old. You couldn't jump online, and you didn't have tools like PropStream, and the tax office I used to drive for dollars all week long and go one day a week to the tax office and use their computer to look up the addresses to mail letters to manually without a service. It was tough when we got started.
that's the truth.
Yeah,
That's the truth, William.
that's right.
But that's all the more reason that I wish more people could, be in the group, and everybody needs to invite, their investor friends that are, looking for some good education. Just the free group. I mean, there's tons of stuff, but the coaching group, I mean, it makes your life so much easier, and you don't go through the stupid mistakes, like I did. And I'm not the only one. I got plenty of mistakes. I'll tell you, I know I can tell you more what not to do than what to do.
Yeah, it was interesting listening to you talk about that sub-2, that deal that you did. My first sub-2, I filled out the wrong deed. Georgia requires a notary acknowledgement and a notary signature and witnesses. And I used a deed straight out of a guru's course. Okay, because I didn't know any better, because I didn't have Facebook groups and things like that. I mean, we had some big news groups is what they used to call them online, which were sort of like Facebook groups, but not really. They weren't as immediate and as interactive. Somebody would post and ask a question, or you could post and ask a question and somebody might answer it later today or whatever. It's pretty instantaneous these days, but I just didn't know. But it all worked out. We made almost $30,000 on that house, because the key here too, I had an attorney that got stuff fixed for me. I hear these guys, and I have these conversations each and every day with people about my title company won't do blah, blah, blah for me. Well, you need to fire them and get one, preferably an attorney, an old guy who's seen it all, because they know what to get done. Those old Southern guys, man, they're like, I remember when I met I had talked to several and they were all goofballs. And when I met my guy, he was old and he had this big gray walrus mustache. And I sat there at his closing table with him and said, Wayne, I want to do this and this and this. And he said, well, I don't see why we can't. Let's do it and see what happens. And I knew that was my guy. You probably got an attorney like that too, I'm betting.
Yeah, he's good. He likes to admonish me, when he likes to wag a finger sometimes. Because my realtor friend, she always watched me, and she was like, Cindy, you can't do that. I'm like, I'm not bound to the same rules you are. Yeah. And she says, you and Walter are in the wild, wild west of real estate, and I'm getting y'all cowboy hats for Christmas.
Well, I heard something a while back, and I can't remember who said it, but I want to say it was a Lonnie Scruggs article where he quoted it. And he said that he would rather ask for forgiveness than permission. And I said, man, I like that a lot, and unless it's something that's just out and out, you're going to get in some
Sure.
trouble for doing it. If it's questionable, man, I'm all over it. It's like a line from I think it was The Client, when Gene Hackman told Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise said, just how many laws do you want me to break? And Gene Hackman says, I don't want you to break any laws, but I want you to bend them until right before they break. And, sometimes we do that in real estate to get some stuff done.
Well, and nothing against the realtors, but once I started, having some passive income and making money in real estate, she used to make fun of me when I'd get a wholesale deal and I'd make, like $1,000 or something. I was like, let's go do it again. It's like a drug. It's like, let's go do it again.
Yeah.
And she would laugh at me, but now she's still going out there and having to make her money every time, she has to make it again and again. It doesn't recur,
Right.
so I think she has a little different respect and outlook for me.
Right.
But she's a super person and she's helped me tremendously. She's answered all my dumb questions that I would ask a realtor and be embarrassed to ask any other realtor,
Exactly. I'll tell you, and you said nothing against realtors. And listen, I've said a lot of stuff about realtors because about 90% of them, they're trained to think a certain way, and that's the only way they think. Now, the other 10% are great. They know about creative finance. They know what can be done. They're open-minded and that sort of thing. But realtors in general work for tips. They do. They work for tips. And, and we go out there and we pull the rabbit out of the hat and make the big money. And I find that most realtors, that 90%, they don't care for investors either.
Maybe they're envious.
Maybe that, or they think we are the cowboys or something in the Wild West. I don't know.
Well, those rules and, have been pounded into their head
Right
about what they can't do.
If you guys have any questions this morning, just put them in the box there. We'll answer those for you. We're going to be here for a little bit. So I'll be glad to answer any questions. Cindy's going to be with us at Sub 2 Palooza. She's going to do a roundtable on Thursday night and talk about some of the deals that she's done and answer some questions. Cindy's done some really creative financing stuff. I know Walter, you talk about him, and Walter's been around for a while. He knows a lot of stuff. So I'm sure she has learned a ton from him and done a bunch of it too. But Cindy, you do everything, don't you? You do Airbnbs. I know you've had Airbnbs that were like Airstream trailers. I mean, just a lot of creative stuff. You do rehabs. I know you flip stuff. You're kind of a transaction engineer, which I did for a really long time. That's a lot of work trying to put leads into different boxes and do all that kind of stuff. Tell us about a deal that you've done that you would say in the beginning it didn't look like it was going to be much, but you polished it up and turned it into something.
Well, there's a bunch of them. I think it's almost a challenge. Maybe it's my personality. I don't know if it's being a Gemini. I don't know if that's what it is, but my personality it goes along with that whole stoicism thing about, it's almost like once I have a problem and I figure it out, I feel powerful. I feel strong. And so it's almost like I welcome it. It took a while. It took a long while, just like if you've never done a foreclosure, you're like, oh my God, what if I have to foreclose? How do I do that? And what happens? And all these questions. And you're like, can I recover? Can I, and once you do one, you're like, no big deal. It's just a thing. There's just a process and you do it,
Right.
So I think I enjoy something coming to me. I don't know about, probably the rest of y'all are like this too, as entrepreneurs. I like seeing something on the horizon and I get an idea and it sometimes it turns into something and sometimes it doesn't, but it is so much fun and kind of like an adrenaline rush to think about a deal and figure out how to morph it into something that is profitable.
Right.
I had a deal one time that was a little house. I had sold some houses and I bought about 3 houses. I committed to buy 3 houses in Jackson and I was going to seller finance them because that's what I like doing. Walter also told me, of course I bought way too many like C-class neighborhood rentals and I didn't borrow enough money to fix the big things like mechanicals, so I never made really any money on those houses. That was going back to having a coach, somebody that's been there and done that, that can guide you. I didn't have a coach, and Walter was a mentor, but he wasn't really a coach. He didn't meet with me every week and talk about what I'm doing and give me suggestions to go forward. He just told me, he said, you'll want to, start creating notes. That's about the coaching that I got.
Right.
So, but I had a lender who was supposed to, who we had been communicating, and I had done several deals with before, who was going to partner with me, not partner with me. They were going to be a lender on this house, but they got busy. Never happened. So I ended up, I was like, okay, I need to get this house deal done. I need to turn it and make some money. So I ended up calling another friend of mine. I think I bought it for like $20,000, and it was in a good neighborhood. It's in kind of North Jackson, so it was a better neighborhood. And I ended up, I studied on it. I had to sleep on it, think on it, be mad about it for a little while because that didn't work out. But again, you find a way. You keep being persistent, you find a way. And so I called up a friend of mine and I said, look, you've been talking to me about notes. Let's do this. I said, you want to know, I will do all the work. So I found a good buyer that went through the RMLO, mortgage loan originator, for like seller finance notes so they could be Dodd-Frank compliant. That was Russ O'Donnell at that time. And we got this lady vetted. She had a great job. She had some life events happen. She got divorced. She and her husband filed bankruptcy. She worked 2 jobs. She worked for the state of Mississippi for a long time, was a super person. And she wanted to buy this house because it was next door to her mama. So that was perfect. And so I ended up selling that note for like $43,000, because it was like a $60,000 note. And I could have sold it for more. I could have kept it and sold it for a smaller discount, but it was good for my investor friend, to have a good solid note that was, Dodd-Frank compliant. And it was good for me because I got to put, some nice cash in my pocket. And the lady got a great house that a bank wouldn't finance her. And her mama got a great neighbor, and we made that neighborhood better. Yeah. So kind of when everybody wins, that's my favorite deals, I might, maybe when I had some more coffee, I could, I got plenty of deals, to talk about. I got to save some for the Palooza, so we can have something to chew on down there. But yeah,
we got to save some for that. But that's right, and everybody's listening to you talk about $60,000 and $70,000 houses. They're all, but and that just goes to show you too, guys, there are pockets in the country that aren't $400,000. And, and I know you make money on inexpensive homes all the time. And all you have to do is talk to some of these mobile home people. Pam is a good example of that. I mean, she buys mobile homes for nothing and sells them for $100,000 with a note. So, Thomas had a question. William, what was the notary rule in Georgia you mentioned? It's not really a rule, Thomas. It's just the correct deed. Some deeds will have a notary acknowledgement on it. Some will just have a notary signature and require witnesses. So there's a different state to state. It's whatever they require. The best way to find out what your state requires is just to, you're in Georgia, so I can tell you it requires a notary signature and witnesses. But if you're in a different state and you don't know, you're just getting started, you don't know what kind of deeds your state requires, go to the records room, or if you don't have to, if you have online access, just pull up a couple of warranty deeds or grant deeds or whatever the deed is in your state and see at the bottom who signed it and what it has. If it's got witnesses and a notary signature, that's what your requirement is. If it's just a notary acknowledgement, then that's what you need. So that's what you need to do. That's the best way to do it. When you're learning, if you don't know what your state requirements are for different things, either call and talk to an attorney if you have one, somebody at the records room can help you, or just go look at the document and then just duplicate it. You don't have to have a course to get a deed. So Kevin said, Cindy, stats show Mississippi's facing a major default rate. Are you seeing or hearing this?
I'm not really keep up with that. I kind of live in my little cosmo here in my small town. And but I'm sure I have a bunch of seller finance notes, and I've got a few people who are, they're behind a month or two. So I'm sure that would extrapolate out into, you know, the regular world, because people have gotten money, but they're not paying their mortgage with it, you know. But I'm not sure, you know, Mississippi, I haven't really followed the stats. I'm not sure.
Mhm. But you know, talking about being a couple of payments behind on a note, it reminds me, hey, Tammy, good to see you here. Talking about that, I used to go on a ton of these cruises that, well, they're real estate meetings, but they have it on a cruise ship because you write that stuff off. You can write off Sub 2 Palooza as well. So don't forget that, guys. Get your tickets if you don't have them. But I went on a note, but they called it the note boat. It was William Mancaro, I think it was, with I can't remember the name of his website. But anyway, and I listened to a guy talk about how he said, if you've got people that are paying, he was just talking, we're talking about lemons to lemonade here, guys. He said, if you got people that are paying you, but you're talking about somebody behind, you could do that with them too. You can go up and you can do the same thing as someone who carries a note that the bank would do. You can go recast their note. You can get a better return. You can help them out. If, you know, you just do it just like the bank does. The bank is going to send you a bunch of paperwork and say, fill out all of this stuff showing you have the means to pay going forward. If we work with you, maybe your buyer just got behind on something because he got laid off for a month or two. Go talk to them, treat them like a human being and say, hey, we'll put those on the back end for you, or redo their note. You get a better rate of return because you're going to restructure that note. They get to catch up and keep their home, and they're a lot more likely to be cooperative with you if it doesn't work out down the road. Because Cindy tried to help us. So let's don't dig in and just try to stay in her house for free. But this guy told me, he said, if you got not tenants, but buyers that are in your house paying on a note, and he said, if you will write them a letter every November and say, you guys are spectacular, we're going to let you skip December's payment. Okay. And he said, you know, the fact of the matter is they're only paying X amount of principal every month anyway. He said, if you let them skip that payment, that note will never decrease. He said, they're going to pay you 11 months out of the year, each and every year. And that $100,000 note or whatever you got 10 years from now, still going to be $100,000 because they missed one payment every year. When I first heard it, I thought it was kind of sleazy or skeezy because the people don't get any principal pay down. But I thought, gee, if they're informed, you know, you're talking about a way to transform a note return, you know, it's just like interest only, basically, is what it comes down to. But yeah, anyway, I don't know what got me off down that rabbit trail, but anyway.
Well, I think most of the people that we all probably deal with, you know, they're coming to us, or we deal with them because life's happened to them. In some shape, form, or fashion. So, I mean, if I've got a good person and like on a seller finance deal, and I have a good down payment, and some of them before I didn't, you know, they weren't Dodd-Frank compliant. You know, I would do pretty much like I would do if I was renting somebody when I vetted them. But if I got to meet them, I learned about their family, kind of saw where they live now, that kind of thing. But I want to keep going, and I want to help people because I think that comes back to me. You know, somebody's certainly not paying, you know, I want them to go, but I also got to look at the cost that it's going to cost me to move them out. And then I have a vacant house. In some areas, I don't want a vacant house. And then what does it cost me to foreclose, and the time it costs me to foreclose? I have to consider all those things. So I try to, like you said, talk to them, and I'm going to use that November idea. That's a great idea. I'm going to use that because I do need to appreciate my people who are doing good, you know.
Well, it benefits them. Everybody needs extra money at Christmas. Everybody. I mean, because I've always told people, if you've got a seller that's carrying back equity for you, and I've done this numerous times, and it hardly ever fails. If you'll contact them November, late October, November, right before the holidays, and say they're holding a note for $20,000 or $30,000 for you for equity until your buyer cashes out, it was a sub 2 or something like that, you can almost always go back and get a really good discount and go, hey, Bob, I know, you know, you guys, I owe you $30,000. I bought your house, agreed to pay. I don't have 30 right now, but I came into a little extra cash. Could you take 20 for that? And I'm telling you, they might come back and say, well, I need 22 or something like that. But listen, I mean, what did you just do to your profit? If you've got that money sitting around, you just got a discount and you can take care of them. So, especially if the note carries any interest.
And it won't happen. The worst they can say is no.
That's right. The worst they can say is no. So, okay, well, we'll pay you as soon as our buyer cashes you out. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. The note boat, paper source online. That's it. They haven't done one in quite a while, or I'd go again. I mean, we always had a really good time on the note boat. We should do a sub-2 Palooza cruise. So maybe we'll do that next year. I don't know if they finally straightened up all the cruise lines. But yeah, I miss cruising. Yep. Okay, well, Cindy, tell us a little bit more about a couple of deals. Now, what was the deal with Airbnb? You know, that seems to be. It seems like that thing comes and goes. Lately, I've seen a couple of gurus talking a lot about Airbnb. You can make, you know, $10,000 a month off this house that you can only make $500 a month in cash flow and all of that stuff. And I think a lot of that's blown up. But tell me, I always figured Airbnb was like a rental. Sure, your profits are better, but it's like high maintenance. What's your thought on that?
And I agree it is. But you know, my college degree was in hospitality, and I'm from Mississippi, the hospitality state, as you know, you are as well. So I just enjoy, you know, Mississippi gets a bad rap in the media as a bad place, but you know, that's fine if those people don't come here. That's we save it for us. But Mississippi is a great place with great people, and like every state, they got their bad ones. You know, we got our bad ones, but most people are genuine, and we're a very generous state. So I just enjoy. I mean, I've gotten to meet people from all over the world that have stayed at that little bitty house that the dogs chewed up the baseboards in Pearl, Mississippi. You know, so it is a lot of work. But I have a neighbor across the street, Mr. Eugene. It's like 85. And he says, Cindy, some days I only you're the only person I talk to. Because I'll go by there once or twice a week, check on the house and visit with him. And he cuts my grass. If people can't get in, you know, he's retired, so he's sitting across the street. He goes and helps them get in. He answers questions. He'll leave the lights on at night. He helps the girls clean. My friend Joni's a chiropractor down the road, and she has 3 girls who work for her, and they are all very OCD, and they are my cleaning team. Plus another lady that one of the local cleaners lets us use her lady. So and you got to manage the app. It's all the same thing. You know, one I can manage along with my other stuff. Now, I wouldn't really want to take on another short-term rental Airbnb where people are turning over a good bit, because that's a lot to manage. You know, I mean, I got to look at the calendar and make sure the cleaning lady's there. I'm where the buck stops. You know, I have to make sure all that happens. Any maintenance, any problems, anything, I have to manage it. And there's an app, and Airbnb makes it easier, but the short-term rental is a labor intensive unless you know, you would have to scale, and you'd have to have systems and processes in place, and, you know, get to where you have a person who can manage that, you know. So I wouldn't take on any more right now. But now some of my friends in Jackson and around the country have kind of transitioned to extended stay, which is like the same thing, but they'll host like students who might be coming in. Like I hosted somebody that stayed at Whitfield at the state hospital. They were there doing a rotation for a month. I mean, that was like a vacation, because they were there a month and I never heard from them. You know, they didn't have, everything was good. So in those people, you know, I mean, then you don't have to deal with the cleaners, the laundry. You know, my house has a washer and dryer, so they did their own. And it, you know, I mean, I give them a monthly discount. So I didn't make probably as much money that month, but I didn't have near the headache. So I think in cities where you have, and I think Sarah's on here, she has an Airbnb in Memphis, but hers is a mix of both, like mine. But I think if you had, I'm more of a fan of the extended stay, unless you're at like a vacation place, destination, where you could stay booked and you could command the highest nightly price, that kind of thing. Of course, then comes with that, you've got competition for cleaning people, maintenance people, you know, because everybody else is doing the same thing. So, but I enjoy it. It's very rewarding to get to show people my Mississippi and to host them and give them a good, comfortable place to stay. And it's just been, who knew that an 85-year-old retired man from Pearl, Mississippi would meet people from all over the world. You know, he never dreamed it. So I've totally enjoyed it. And I enjoyed the Airbnbs. I had I had an Airstream and an Avion out at the reservoir, which is about 20 minutes from my house. And we had people from all over the world that came to stay there too.
Right.
You know, it was on the north end of the reservoir where it was fishing. It was real quiet, real peaceful and natural. But now that was a lot of work too, to maintain the campers. Same thing, cleaners, laundry, all those things, maintenance. But it was very fun. And the key there was I had them at somebody else's marina and RV park. So I had to make $450. I was in the whole $450 a month before I ever made $1, because that's what my lot rent and electricity was. Right. So people make it sound glamorous and it's fun, but it's a lot of work. Like anything else, it's a lot of work. But there again, if you're scattered, I can never say enough about being focused. And that's why I'm trying to turn my life to be focused. I struggled with, I've been through, like Pam and I talked about it. We talked about it on accountability, and Sarah and I've talked about it, but I've gone through 3 CPAs. I can't even count how many bookkeepers. I finally have a good accountant and another good bookkeeper now, and myself, and QuickBooks, and we've implemented Profit First. So I finally, after all these years, feel like I'm in a good place with my books, and that's something that I would really, and I'd like to talk more about when we're in New Orleans, is about how important that is to get that basic thing, because I started rolling. People said, buy houses. You don't have to have any money to buy houses. Well, people are like, I'll loan you money. And I had some private lenders and I borrowed money and I paid way too much interest, some of them, but I bought a bunch of houses and they needed maintenance. And it was just like I said, a snowball. And I didn't have all those things in place up front. And nobody that hadn't been in my position, in my situation, has a clue what that's like to live with. It's no fun at all. So I would be glad to help anybody or give suggestions to anybody. But I think you should focus. I think you should get a business plan down, and you should have all those ducks in a row before you get started rolling, because your life will be so much easier and so much sweeter, and you'll make so much more money if you do it that way.
I agree.
I mean,
Yep. And if you guys are looking for some tools, sub2coolstuff.com. We've got about 15 different investing tools for you. And one of them is a business plan. It's actually a business plan I used when I got started, and got several lines of credit with it from local banks and regional banks and that sort of thing. So if you just go to sub2coolstuff.com, we're going to ask you for your email, but we're going to give you a whole bunch of stuff for free. So I don't spam you too much. I'll just send you an email every once in a while, let you know what's going on. So anyway, go check that out and get your business plan. Yeah, I agree. A plan's pretty important. I know that's exactly the way that I got started. I ordered a Carlton Sheets infomercial course at 2:00 in the morning off of late night TV. And I just, I did what 95% of people don't do. I just took the wrapper off of it and I started reading it. And I remember I got a couple of chapters in and I was so overwhelmed, because the only thing I knew about real estate was the couple of houses that I had bought previously. And when you buy a house, Cindy, especially as a homeowner, you make an application at the bank, you go through a month or two of absolute hell while they check everything about you. I mean, right down to which pants and how tight. I mean, they check everything out on you. It looks like you'll get the loan. You won't get the loan. Maybe you will. We'll see. It's looking tough. We need to work on this. And then finally they go, you've been approved. You're sweating it out, and then you go to the closing table at the attorney's office, and they have a stack of papers about this tall. And he says, sign here, sign here, sign here. You don't read nothing. And you have your house. But so I read this book and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to learn all this stuff. But I just started doing what he said to do. And a month later, I bought a house. And then next month I bought another house, and the next month I bought another house. And I did all this while I was working 70 hours a week. All right. In the restaurant business. So at that point, 3 houses in, I looked up and said, wait a minute, this is kind of getting out of hand. I walked in first tax season. I walked in, I had 4 houses then, walked into H&R Block with my 4 files. And the woman looked at me like I had 2 heads. And, you know, I bought them all in my name. You talk about making some mistakes, but that's how I got started. But at that 3rd house is when I made my plan. I said, all right, I got to have a plan. And I remember sitting on a swing, watching my kids play in the little park while I made my 12-month, 3-year, 5-year plan. This is what I have to do. These are the people I have to work for me. And that's what I operated with. And I said, I want to leave my house, my job in 12 months. And I did. Left my job 12 months later and
Awesome.
hadn't had a job since. But you have to have a plan to do that. So for sure.
That's awesome. That's a great story.
Yeah, you like that? It was tough at the time. I like it now, tell it. But, you know, I mean, really, you can't just meander through the thing. You know, you have to. I just did a podcast last week about when is it time to leave your job? You know, how many students or you see posts and say, well, I just flipped my first house. I think I'm going to go quit my job. No, that's not a good idea. You know, you may have generated $5 or $10 or $15,000. Everybody's not like Ron LeGrand. You remember, Ron LeGrand's story? I went out, I got this house under contract. I flipped it. I made $3,000. I called my boss and said, I'm up in my income, up yours. Don't do that. It doesn't work for everybody. Have a plan for sure. So Sydney's going to be with us at Sub 2 Palooza. She's going to talk about how to turn lemons into lemonade and talk to you, sounds like, about the team that you need to put together and that sort of thing. So that's great. It's good information. So anything that you'd like to say in closing today, another deal you want to share with us? Or if you guys have questions, let us have them. Mark says your house is in Pearl.
Mm-hmm.
So
Pearl,
that's
Mississippi.
your Airbnb.
Yep, my Airbnb. Mm-hmm.
Is that the only one you've got now?
Right now, yep.
Okay, so
the building I'm in belongs to my friend, the chiropractor, and on the other end of it is my warehouse. It means it's full of all my construction crap.
Rehab stuff.
1,600 square feet. And it's not organized. You know, you get through with a job and you're like, I'm tired of just put it in there. I'll deal with it later. And then the next one piles on top of that, you know. But my plan is to have, in my small town where I am, there's no, there's a motel that's run by an Indian family. And, you know, it's kind of sky blue trim, you know, and maroon doors, that kind of, you know, place. Not a really great place that people want to stay that live here. And we just spent $1 million on a new baseball park for the city. And so I'm thinking of making 2 400 square foot, like executive suite apartment kind of deals. And I want to put them on Airbnb because the hospital's contacted me. We don't have like our own doctor at the emergency room. We, you know, bring in doctors and there's nowhere for them to stay. So I think that would be good. And, you know, I'm doing more business here, so I could put my hands on it. And, you know, I'm back kind of in the mix in the city. So I think I could promote it. And then the land out here to the side, I still have 3 Airstreams and I have them parked out there, but I'd like to thinking about maybe trying to figure out that land's kind of in the flood zone. There's a ditch that goes through there. So commercial, you know, the guy was talking about building a hotel, but I don't know that he could do that there because it is kind of low. But I was thinking RV storage. And at the back of it, there's a pond back there. So I can see, you know, like I love the movies like from the 30s, like It Happened One Night, where Clark Gable and Claudette Colbert pull up in their, you know, 32 model coupe, something. And they get a room and they're staying in like a little 20 by 20 cabin and there's a bathhouse, you know, and people park their campers and kind of that old school kind of auto camp kind of place. So that's kind of one of those fun things I like to think about and draw on paper. Maybe that'll be something I do and have some, you know, have maybe Airbnb my campers again, you know, have some more of a destination kind of place. Maybe.
I know you, we watched you document the process of this duplex that you did. That was the old country store. How'd that work out for you? You got that finished? Did you?
Well, yes. And it actually was wonderful. I spent a lot of money on it, but I'm a, as far as not touting another person, but there's a guy named Daniel Clayman that I follow. He's in the Richmond Mafia group. And he impressed upon me and people in his group, like when he's doing his rental houses, he's not going to buy a rental house that is occupied.
Right.
because he knows that's a recipe for disaster problems. So I took it upon myself when I did this. It was an old country store, nothing in it. And we redid the foundation. We pulled up the old heart pine floor and saved it and then put it back down when we got through. We bought 1x6 boards instead of sheetrock to do the walls. The ceilings are sheetrock. And then we put that pretty wood back down, all new cabinets, all new plumbing, all new electrical, all new, everything is brand new in there. And I wanted to spend that money up front because I don't want any maintenance problems or minimal for like 5 years. I don't want to have any trouble for 5 years. So I think that's kind of my way to go now, is to do that. But those are out in the county and they're about 750 square feet. And I was inundated with people who wanted them because there's just no choice here in my county. That's not even in my little town, of good, clean, functioning rentals. So I was able to get $700 a month for a 2-bedroom, which is about higher than anybody else gets for rent, here. And I got school teachers. They're paid by the county. When the pandemic came, they got paid when other people didn't get paid. So that was another plus of that kind of person to try to, to steer my way. And that's great. And it's working like a charm, So I enjoyed that. It was a labor of love, but that's a good investment, I think, for a long term. And I went ahead when we did it, I had to put a new septic tank in, and I put a bigger septic tank because I thought down the road there's room in behind those 2 apartments to put 2 more. So I would either, right now I wouldn't do it because of cost of building materials, but I could either, take some of those bigger, the storage buildings that you can buy, the big storage buildings are already framed out, and maybe retrofit them and make them kind of match my building and park 2 of them down there and, have an additional income for not that much, expense out of pocket. So that's always, I like to have a plan A, and then I also like to have a plan B and C, so that whatever happens. So my house at Malone Road up here, that I'll tell this one real quick. If you're friends with me on Facebook, you've probably seen it, but it was a seller finance deal that I had with my partners, and it was up in the county. We bought it as a foreclosure. We paid, I think, $18,000 for it. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. Didn't need a lot of work, and we seller financed it to a veteran guy, and he paid us $7,000 down. He didn't pay all of it down. That's another no on my part, being too dang nice. But he lived in it. We sold it for $79,000. Seller financed it to him. His payment was about a little over $600 a month, and he's 100% disabled, so he didn't pay property taxes. That's another group that Walter goes after, because the disabled people, because in Mississippi they don't pay property tax. You don't want our level of dollar amount of houses. Well, rocked on, and the guy called me one day and he said, "Cindy, we got a problem." Now I'm thinking, we don't have a problem. You may have a problem, but it's probably going to become my problem. But anyway, the house was below the grade of the road, so there was a water issue. They had big dogs that had gotten under the house and dug these gargantuan holes under the house, and then the gutters were slap full. So the water had nowhere to go, and it collected under the house. And over, I guess, a course of like 2 years' time, and I don't know, 6 people living in the house. And anyway, the floor, the structure gave way. The floor joist gave way. So we went in there, and literally it was 12 inches, the floor was hanging, and they were still had their living room furniture in there, with this house having a belly in it, it's Anyway, I said, I can either
Mississippi, y'all.
I'm gonna tell some more of my Palooza stories, but I said, I can either just keep, because I had an underlying mortgage and my partners had gotten divorced, so they were out of the picture. I ended up taking everything on, which my lender was really happy about, because it was his son that was the partner that is getting divorced. But I kept things going because I had the skill set and the experience to do it. I said, I can either let this thing rot down and keep paying the mortgage, and then figure something out, or I can hope lightning strikes it because they got good insurance, or I could go back to him and say, look, I need about $35,000 more dollars. I think I owed 24 at the time, and I'm gonna fix this house up and sell it, because the market was what it was. So I probably had an emotional temper tantrum for 2 or 3 days after this news was presented to me, because I'm like, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? And then I just calmed down, thought about some exit strategies. So we just finished it I spent a day over there doing all the last odds and ends of stuff, and it should be listed today. And I've just put it on Facebook, and I've had multiple people interested already. So that house will be, I think I owe 60, and we're listing it for like 125. So I mean, even if we moved it at 100, I'd still come out okay.
It's
You know?
better than a poke in the eye with a sharp stick, right?
Exactly. My friend Jolene, who's a really cool girl, some of my friends on Facebook have met. She manages the surplus warehouse. It's just they call it the home outlet now. But she said, Cindy, when I saw those pictures, she said my palms started sweating. She said, I just couldn't imagine walking into that and trying to fix it.
Hey, that ain't nothing.
That's right.
That ain't nothing though. And I had a house that had a foundation. I learned this when I called out the professionals, and it's going to cost 20 or 30,000 to fix it. And my handyman guy crawled under the house and said, "Oh, we can do that for $500." You know what I mean? It's really a matter.
That's right.
You can pay too much to get something done.
That's right. That's right.
When the guy that drives the fancy truck and has all the Yellow Pages ads and all the big, fancy website, you're going to have to pay him to fix it.
Because he's got to pay for all that stuff.
Yeah, that's right. And that's crazy. So
we're fortunate to have a lot of good rednecks in Mississippi that can figure stuff out,
Right. Yeah. A couple of hydraulic jacks and a few new 2x12s and which that might cost you 20,000 a day to get. I can't imagine how much a pressure treated 2x12 cost right now.
That was the worst part of it.
Yeah.
Was paying the exorbitant price for lumber. Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty bad. All the memes out there now about tearing the house down, selling it for parts.
The parts.
All that stuff, for sure. All right. Well, Cindy, we certainly appreciate you being here with us today and sharing the stories. Looking forward to talking to you in New Orleans this September.
Well, I hope that, from my experience, I'd love to help people. I've done a lot of good and I've made a lot of mistakes, but I think I'm on the positive side, but I love helping people and answering questions and maybe helping people not go through some of the things that I went through, give you a little speed up on your learning curve. So I think, William is a huge resource, and I've always been a fan of his. Just by hearing him talk years ago, that was attractive to me, and then got to know him and met him actually in Kansas City a couple of years ago and been in his group this last year. And I'm looking forward to doing some subject to deals the proper way.
Oh yeah, for sure. All right. Well,
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Hey guys, we appreciate you being here with us today. We do Goat Talk every Thursday morning at 8 Pacific, 9 Mountain Time. 10 Central and 11 Eastern. So join us. We've always got somebody on here that's fun to talk to and teaches you a little bit, help you do a little bit better in your business. So if you haven't got your tickets for Sub2Palooza, sub2palooza.com. We still have rooms in our room block at the Hyatt. So that's great. And we've got about a third off of the regular price of the room. So we'd love to have you join us there. We're going to have a great time. So you guys join us next week. Cindy, thanks so much for being here. And
thank y'all.
We'll talk to you guys.
Appreciate it.
Have a great day. Talk to some sellers. Buy some houses.
Bye, y'all.